physical activity has actually decreased
Yeah.
by about 6 percentage points in developed markets over the last 6-7 years.
Sports from a gender perspective, women participation versus men participation.
Today, about 17% of our users are women. I wish there were more, but this was, single digits a few years back. So it's definitely increasing.
How important do you think are these goals, and are they sustainable enough for the continuity of the sport?
Generally, people who are in college who just got out of college, right? I mean, they just started work. Maybe they would not be very worried about fitness just yet. It's only as you sort of, start progressing in, life, maybe mid-late 20s, your friends start moving out of your city, right? You're done with partying, and then suddenly sort of health becomes a little bit of a priority.
Yeah. What's the competitive landscape?
When I started, the TAM was effectively zero. Fortunately, there's been a high failure rate as well. It's tough to persevere in this space. About 40% of our user acquisition is referral, without any gratification to it, without any reward to it.
They're coming to the player to seek out the community first. That's interesting.
From a product and a community perspective, honestly, it's really the demand that is more important.
How much of capital you guys have raised?
We've largely been bootstrapped, so we've
Okay.
raised very small amounts of angel capital.
Gaurav, thank you. Great to have you and have this conversation. You want to quickly get started by giving a quick intro about yourself?
Yeah, no, before that, Dilip, thanks for having me over. It's delightful to see you guys doing what you are doing. I think not many people understand, fitness. And I'm glad you said fitness and sleep and eating, because I think people understand fitness as exercise, and that's one dimension.
Yeah.
So thanks for organizing this. I think spreading the word out and for having me over. It's a real privilege to be here.
Pleasure.
So my name, as you said, is Gaurav. I run a platform called Playo. And very simply put, what we do at Playo, we get people to take up sports again. Somewhere I think as children we all play. As we grow up, we become boring, analytical, corporatized, all grown-ups. I think we just sort of try to bring back play into people's life. In our mind, maybe naive, but it's probably a very sort of pure way to solve for, health and fitness. And that's what we do.
Yeah, no, great. Very excited to have this conversation and unpack your journey and what you're building at Playo. And I like what you said, you help people play sport again. I think we live in a time where largely in our culture also sports has been an extracurricular activity. There always has been extra to it, right? It was never been primary. So I think the times we live now, we all understand and we acknowledge the fact that it has to be primary, and that's the idea. The idea here is that if people have to stay healthy, they need to have products and services which can anchor that healthy lifestyle. And for those products and services to be in existence, there has to be creators and innovators like you who have to build. So we should talk more about such builders. So great to get started with this conversation. You already gave a quick teaser about Playo. Let's start with you. What was your journey before you started Playo, and what made you start Playo as the product to kickstart your entrepreneurial journey?
So before starting Playo, I was essentially part of the problem myself. Just like the people whose problems we're trying to solve for, graduated, did my MBA and all that, and was working as a banker. Work, party. So I think that sort of became life. Work hard, party harder. So that was sort of my background, and I think obviously health fitness took a back seat. I became fat, like double of what I am. I'm
Sure.
still on the healthier side, but yeah. So that essentially was my background. Being an investment banker before this, close to about 10 years. Worked at Nomura, set up their India office. Was working in a boutique called Unitas here, where we were raising capital for the social impact space, and that was pretty cool working with early stage founders, companies who are making a positive change in the world around them. Whether it is financial inclusion, whether it is telehealth, whether it is micro pensions or agri. So that was what I was doing before this. What got me started onto Playo, I think there was two elements to it, Dilip. One was this kida of doing something. Was privileged to be a banker, and therefore, from a ringside, see entrepreneurs, building out things, the passion, the commitment, you know, the grill that they put themselves through, in pursuit of what they believed in. As a banker, I mean, you were part of the journey, but it wasn't yours. And I think that's something that I did want to experience. It was sort of an itch to scratch. So I think that was one driver to do something. The second driver really was, I was fortunate. I grew up in a boarding school. Sports was not very extracurricular for us. It was core
Primary.
curricular. Yeah, I mean, our principal, I remember, talked about all round development all the time. Right. So played a lot of sports. Fortunately or unfortunately, I was sort of jack of all, master of none, and therefore, went down the study route. But yeah, sports has always been an important part of my life. I, sort of trying to get back into fitness. I think that's sort of one problem that started for me. I enrolled in a gym. Went for a week, then did not go. I enrolled again. I went for 2 days. I did not go. I enrolled a third time. I did not go at all. Right. So that was essentially my struggle to be fit. I started playing tennis again. After about a month, I stay in Alsur. I used to travel to Whitefield. Then, after about a month, the person I was playing with moved cities. He got a job in Bangalore. So, during that 1 month, I bought 2 tennis rackets, a fancy kit bag, shoes, and all that. And I was just gathering dust. Uh, I started playing basketball again. Found a group. Any given Sunday, on WhatsApp, I'm not coming. Have a family commitment. So, well, there was a group of 15. You'd only be able to get together once a month, and I think therefore you sort of struggle to play. So I think it was sort of really driven partly by my own need, and I think partly just observing people around me. I remember going to a friend's place in Delhi, and she just moved there, and I was like, I she was talking about it's a new city for me. I don't know people around, but I'm like, you live in this big apartment complex. Why don't you make friends? She's like, I don't know anybody, and I'm like, okay, but you have this badminton racket lying here. Why don't you use it? You have a badminton court downstairs. And she said, Gaurav, what's wrong with you? I mean, how do I just take a racket and go? It's awkward. And I think, maybe all these sort of cues started coming in. Maybe it's a positive bias when I look back. And I think that's when I looked around and decided nobody was talking about sports like you introduced it, Dilip. I mean, sports for the longest time, Hamare liye has been, it's either extracurricular or it's like, there's a Tendulkar, there's a Dhoni, and there's us jo tali bajate hain.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that to me was, I mean, why don't we look at sports as a participant?
Yeah, yeah. No, and a great point. I mean, something which I wanted to ask you as an extension was same, and I'm sorry to break your rhythm, but probably you could dial in a little more. I mean, we are a huge population, right? Sports is celebrated, but still, I feel that we are more of a spectator sport country than a participative sport country, right? Even in participation, is mostly kids or people who are getting through your college, who are doing cricket or odd football. But if you look at the landscape, we are not out there, right? So can you kind of dial in that aspect as what the problem statement you were observing, and also kind of touch upon your observations and why still that, or do you think that's changing?
Well, I think it's definitely changing very fast, and I think we sort of at times give ourselves too much discredit saying India mein nahi hota hai. I think it's a global thing, right? I think for the longest time, fitness has been seen as exercise gyms, treadmills. That's sort of been our panacea. The only vaccine or treatment we have for fitness has been treadmills and
Yeah.
gyms, right? That's not been challenged for a very, very long time. Uh, right. So I think the trends that we're seeing are not just in India, they're at a global level. And I think the problem also, therefore, we saw was at a global level, right? Where sports has been the preserve of, it's equated to Olympic gold medal conquests.
Yeah.
And I think it sort of simply just starts and stops at that. So you're right. I mean, it's not mostly kid, it's been exclusively kid, and it's always been about training the next champion, right? And what do you do, therefore, to sort of do, athlete enhancement, performance enhancement, right? And then there's the fan part of it, right? Viewership. So I think that's how it's been. Sports has always been perceived, right? It's not seen as solving for fitness. It's seen as sports is sports.
Yeah.
अपनी जगह अलग है,
Yeah.
right? Uh, I think that's what really we've been trying to change. And touching upon the problem again. I've had the good luck of advising as a banker a few health tech startups way back. Wearables was becoming cool. Everybody in India was importing and building a wearable play post Fitbit success. um, I think the problem was the same that we saw in gyms: very poor retention rates.
Yeah.
Right? So you'd start off as a fad. After a while, you just drop off the wagon, fall off the
Yeah.
wagon, as they
Yeah.
say, right? So how do you sort of solve for sustainable fitness? And I think what struck me was that, why is fitness being treated as this no pain, no gain, torture hona hai, tabhi fit honge, right? Why can't you just have fun? And let fitness be a byproduct.
So there was a power cut, so we had to take a pause. But we haven't skipped the train of thought. No, so I think we'll get into the business part of the segment, what Playo does, and the product in specific a little later. But I still want to kind of extend this conversation, looking at the macro observational side of it, right? And you've been building Playo for almost 7 years now, right?
Yeah, 8 years now.
8 years now. Wow. So you have seen quite a big trend. What I'm keen to know is two sides of it. One is how have you seen this trend in terms of sports from a gender perspective? That is the women participation versus men participation. You could talk about I mean, I'm not expecting it to be equal though, but have you seen the change, and what do you think has prompted the change? B, from an age specific point of view, right? I would still probably assume, and I would love to be proven wrong, that sports is still at a recreational level when you're probably at between 20, 30, 30, 35. It's not as much as what it should be in 35 plus category. But I would love to get some more perspective on that. So yeah, two sides you can mix, but the gender side of it, how that's improving and what has improved, and the age demography.
Yeah, so I guess I'll just answer that briefly from our own data, right? I mean, there's no industry reports out there to cite. It is an emerging space. But today, about 17% of our users are women. I wish there were more, but this was, single digits a few years back. So it's definitely increasing. I think it's increasing not just for fitness reasons, but it's also a great way to socialize for women. I remember when we started, I was actually at a badminton court speaking to users, and there was a group of women playing there. And I said, "Ki aap badminton kyun khel rahe ho? Why are you playing?" Right? She said, actually before this badminton court came up, we used to sort of just hang around, do walks together, but this has become a new kitty party.
Wow.
And as I said, what do you get out of this? She said, actually it helps me tolerate my husband better. So I think that
Resilience and
is
patience.
I mean, it's a great outcome, right? So I think we're seeing women as they're sort of increasingly becoming, more aware about fitness, right? Uh, an avenue to sort of hang out with people. I think that's what we're seeing. Yes, of course, men are still 83%. But yeah, I mean, I think I see it sort of as the glass, half full rather than half empty. So that's, I think, the statistics that there's another interesting use case we've seen on Playo. Maybe sorry to quickly digress here, but some women also use it for dating purposes.
Wow.
Right, it provides a safe environment to meet people.
That's a very unique observation. I mean, that could be I don't know, a monetizing opportunity, taking on all these dating apps to say that you like to date with a sporting guy or a girl, and your product could be a solution for that.
Yeah, I think, I mean, we'll talk about this more, Dilip, but I think sort of again, sports cuts across multiple needs, right? It solves for fitness, it solves for mental health. I think that's a more powerful outcome of sports than physical health, to be honest.
Yeah.
And third, it solves for social health.
Yeah.
Right? So I think that's sort of, the power of sports, or what it can be. Not what it is.
And do you still think that, to the data, what you say, so we are still at 80 odd % men and remaining to be women. We are at that data.
Correct.
And how are we at par to the global segment? I mean, do you think it's very skewed, or that's pretty much how it is in other?
Again, I mean, research reports hard to come by, even at a global, it's not just in India, but, sports participation as a sector is emerging globally. Playo honestly is a leader in what we do, not just in India, globally. There is only one global pair of scale of comparison out of Spain. So it's a new space right now. Even if you look at sort of Strava's data, right, I think majority of them are also male, right? But yes, I mean, there's obviously a lot of catch-up work to do on that front. Not denying it, but it's encouraging to at least see 17%. Up from 7% a few years back.
So staying on this topic, and after, I mean, maybe you can then touch about the age segment.
Sure.
Do you think so? This data comes out more prevalent because we have apps like yours and others who are kind of tracking the urban city participation. Do you think the data is any different in the rural segment? Because I would assume even there, people, not probably maybe adults, but at least till the age of 25, 30, people are playing sport. Could be a different type of sport what most people are playing in the urban cities, but the data is any different there?
Yeah, it'd be hard for me to comment on that, Dilip. It's honestly, I mean, our focus is on the urban, segment. I mean, while we are not restricted to metros, we sort of percolated today to about 60 odd cities, but these are towns and cities. These are not rural spaces, right? Anecdotally, again, I mean, spoken to a few friends running grassroots organizations for sports. There's a friend who runs an organization called Mrida. They do grassroots. I think she actually sees a lot more women, girls in her soccer schools than guys.
I'm about to ask, I mean, do you see the choice of sport being similar between, let's say, tier 3, tier 4 cities to tier 1, tier 2, or I mean, it's these very few common sports?
Depends again. I mean, I think it varies from city to city. Badminton's more popular, a lot popular, honestly, at a lot of places. right? Box cricket is more popular among the men's segment.
Yeah.
So it varies based on area, it varies based on age, it
Yeah.
varies based on gender,
Yeah.
right? But I think the sort of the three popular sports that we see on Playo are badminton, football, and
Yeah.
cricket.
Yeah, and someone was also telling me that you're right on the geographical adaptation to it. Like soccer is more played in northeast and some region of south than let's say north, right, or west. And you also see kids and yeah, girls and women playing more of that sport, which is very unlike to find. I mean, obviously in urban cities, cities like Bangalore, Bombay, and Delhi, you might, but probably in tier two cities, you may not find women participation as
Yeah,
much
it's
as.
also an inexpensive sport, right? I mean,
Yeah.
they call it the greatest game for a reason, right?
Yeah.
And the following it has Latin America everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, all you need a ball and you can get started.
Yeah. Yeah.
As
Yeah.
opposed to other sports where
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
need.
How about the age side of it? I mean, have you seen that trend kind of moving upwards? New age participation coming? Any interesting insights on that side?
So again, speaking from our own data, right? About 50% of our users are in the 25 to 35 segment.
Okay.
That's the largest. About 30-35% are in the 35 to 45 segment. And then there's, about 10 or 15% above 45.
Okay.
Uh, so interestingly, again, I think maybe it's reflective of what the problem we are trying to solve, right? Which is that uh, college students and kids, right, schools, I mean, they already have access to a sports ecosystem. And it's not just the place, right, but also the community, the people, right? It's part of their curriculum, whether extra or main. I mean, that's always debatable, right? But matlab, it is available to participate for them, right? So we are basically solving for people who don't have that access, right? And maybe therefore our own data is skewed. I mean, I can only talk about what we see at Playo, right? But generally, people who are in college who just got out of college, right? I mean, they just started work. Maybe they would not be very worried about fitness just yet, right? Also worried about social circles because you've graduated and you have your friend college circle around you, right? It's only as you sort of start progressing in life, maybe mid late 20s, your friends start moving out of your city, right? You're done with partying and then suddenly sort of health becomes a little bit of a priority. I think that's when you sort of start looking at. I guess if you even look at the gym segment, I'd be surprised if you see like, a lot of 21, 22, 23-year olds, hitting the gyms. It's only like, mid late 20s when you start looking at that space. And I think that's the sector we cater to as well. But I think the myth that, the older you get, the less inactive, right? And therefore you can't be playing sports. I think that's all,
Yeah.
complete utter nonsense.
Yeah.
Uh, take Khushwant Singh for example. Yeah, happy guy playing tennis right till the very end.
Yeah, yeah. In fact, I wanted to, on a similar line, I want to check with you, right? I mean, have you seen the trend going any upside when a large event kind of anchors it? For example, a soccer World Cup happens. Do you see more people now, new segment of audience getting into the sport, or a PV Sindhu or a Saina Nehwal, makes it to finals or wins a title? Do you see more women coming? Have you seen any of those parallel act events anchoring a new audience to participation of the sport? Have you seen any such trends?
Absolutely. I think, these events, and, I wouldn't call them sort of celebrity influence or something. I think it's just that, just exposure to, a person, a role model, or in some sense, right? I think it sort of drives people to participate more in sports. So definitely, right? I mean, with India doing exceedingly well in badminton over the last couple of years, right? Sindhu, Sanya, right? We see a lot more people taking up badminton. How much are they driven by the celebrity influence. I think what is happening is this, it's the sport which is popularizing, and there's a chance to participate as well as just instead of following. I think those things are coming together. Right now we being driven by the fact that I am playing because Sindhu is playing. I think it'd be hard. I think coming to that conclusion will probably be a big leap of faith. But I think it's just increasing awareness for sure.
Yeah. So when someone is playing a sport at a different age demography, more or less the goals are very different, right? I mean, for a sub 16-year-old guy, he's pursuing, or even sub 12-year kid, he's pursuing. Probably someday he might take it to be professional, right? Maybe a 30+ person is trying to say that that's a form of staying fit and active for me, right? So there is always this intrinsic overarching motivation which is out there, right? How important do you think are these goals, and are they sustainable enough for the continuity of the sport? Because let's say for a kid who is at 12, if he can't cut out to be a professional at 20, there are very slim chances that he can make into a professional circuit, right? Or for someone at 30, 35, if he's not consistently able to lose weight or sweat out, or he gets injured, his retention in continuing the sport also becomes strained. So having that overarching goal, one, is it healthy enough to have that continuity, or is it just for the sake of love of sport, I will just keep playing it as much as I get, because it's a different audience, right?
Correct. And I think you're talking about, Dilip, two separate types of goals here, right? I mean, you understand the first goal on the kid you talked about, right? That's an external goal. That's like as a career option, right? That, okay, if you need to hit a certain level to then make it a career, right? And therefore you need to benchmark yourself against others, right? The second type of goal is how do I improve? Right? And that is your benchmarking not against others, you're benchmarking against yourself. Right? I think that is the difference in goals, right? So, yes, people play sports recreationally in the second segment, but inherently sports is competitive, right? I mean, I'm sure you've played, right? You come and you'll be like practicing that shot, I could have hit it like that, right? Or how do I better my, score the next time, right? How do I run faster, maybe shave a few seconds. So okay, I mean, you run, correct?
Yeah.
Right? So you're a serious runner.
Yeah.
I mean, are you trying to break some Kenyan's record? Or are you just trying to break your own record?
True. I mean, yeah, very valid point, right? So and this is something which I joke around with my friends and my family, right? For me, it started off as a form factor for staying healthy and fit. But over the period of time, I realized that, it can be a performance metric which can stay for me, for internally motivating me. My physiology has a limitation, considering the age, and of course, running is an aerobic sport. So I know at max where I can lead. It would be a nightmare to even think that I could even tag along with a Kenyan who is doing an easy run any day, right? Because their easy run would be my threshold pace.
But that doesn't mean you don't have goals.
Certainly not. Right? I mean,
so that you have different goals, right?
Yes.
Your goal, your competition is you.
Very internal, yeah. But the point which I was trying to get to earlier was that I've also seen, let's say in the kid example, right? When they take up the sport, what I'm trying to uncover is that if they don't get to that benchmark of getting into a nationals or state level, right? For them, they look it down, saying that they're not good enough, right? Now, do they have the continuity? Okay, now let's switch gears, and now let's play for the love of sport or health. And likewise for that adult who was looking at it as a means of, again, staying fit, but for whatever reason they don't hit that goal, right? Then do they come back and say, okay, I'm not hitting the goal, do I switch back the sport, or do I just continue playing this sport just because I love this sport? What trend have you seen in your data?
Okay, so what generally, again, I mean, we don't track people from their kids. I mean, we only come into their lives, right? But we do a lot of initiatives around, humans of play or sports taught me. And we talk to people like this, right? Who been fairly serious about sports, right? I think what we generally observe is there's been a break in their sports journey, because they didn't cut out as sports athletes, and then welcome to corporate life
Yeah.
like everybody else, and then they rediscover the love for sports. They're just better at sports than a lot of other people. But you know what? Now they just playing for the joy of it, and for without the pressure of having to play for cutting it to the national team or the state team. They're having, how do I put it, they're having serious fun.
Yeah. That's a very good. I mean, they're two very polar parts words, but when they come together, they sound very beautiful. That seriousness and fun, right? I mean, how do you mix it together and still have a continue to it? And I am glad the kind of work what you guys are doing, because, like I said in the beginning, it's important for people to have platforms and a community where they can relate. Like you were saying, to your previous point also, I also find sport to be a great source of emotional connect, right? In my apartment, I've seen parents taking their kids, someone, a dad and a kid doing squash, or someone jumping in the pool. It could be recreational, but it's a sport at the end of the day, or someone going out for a run. So it's a great way to bond. I've made some of my best friends in this part of my life because of sport, because of running, right?
Yeah, and it's one activity where you can't be holding the mobile phone while doing it, so you are forced to interact.
Yeah, maybe post the activity, you still want to go to the digital world and tell the world
Which
that
is
this is what
fine.
you have done.
I mean, we can't be all Luddites and all here, right? But the idea is, can we disconnect ourselves from technology, from social media, from the phone for a while? It's just healthier, I would think.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So, it's very exciting to see how you guys are building. Let's talk about Playo in specific. So, for the consumer, what is Playo? You touched upon at a very macro level. So, if why would a consumer want to come and download your app? What do they get out of it? And why would they want to come back again to Playo?
So again, I mean, before the user thing, right? I mean, I think what we are solving for is enabling a sports activity. Right now, there's various facets to enabling a sports activity. You need people, you need places. If you have a group, you then need some organizational tools at times, right? For calendar management, payment management, chatting, SMS, right? All of which happens at different places. You need equipment to play with. You need, we talked about skilling up, right? So there's these 4 or 5 elements that go into making a sports activity happen and making it happen regularly, right? At Playo, we try to sort of offer all of these on a single platform.
Okay.
Right? The idea is we want to enable the sports activity, and whatever it takes to make it happen, we want to be that one-stop platform for that. And therefore, to answer your second question, right, an interaction of a user with Playo could be for across these 5 elements, right? It could be that, okay, I want to book a venue, I want to discover a venue, I want to book a sports venue, and therefore I come to Playo. It could be that, I have a group, but there's no quorum on that group, we need extra people. I want to therefore come to Playo. It could be that, I don't know who to play with, right? I'm new to this city, I'm new to this place. I'm finding new people to play with, I come to Playo. It could be I'm finding new people to play with because sports is competitive, and I want to play with new people, test my mettle, and therefore I come to Playo. So I mean, we cut across a variety of use cases, right? But the core theme in all of that is the sports activity.
Yeah. So, I mean, you said it. I mean,
and there are interestingly very huge overlaps in what a user therefore does on Playo.
Have you seen any, amongst all these use cases, any one use case which is more prominent? Like you said, I mean, for me, the way I'm looking at it, I want to play a sport. I don't know whom I'm going to play. I'm new to the city. I also don't know which is the nearest center, but I know I want to play badminton. I download your app, I look out for someone and go, right? I mean, so there are multiple use cases in the same experience. Which one one amongst those 4 or 5 use cases do you think is more prominent? Is it someone looking for a partner, someone looking to bring their community, someone looking for a space they can bring their own group, which seems to be the most prominent one?
So the two most prominent use cases today are people looking for people to play with,
Okay.
right? And second is people looking to book a venue through Playo.
Okay.
So we today enable about close to 300,000 sports activities per month.
Okay. So these are, when you say 300,000 activities, that means these are number of bookings which...
No. These are sports activity. This is people. This is not people play. These are the number of. How do I put it right? These are the number of sports activities happening per
because
month
of the platform.
because of the
via the platform
on
they
the
are playing.
on the platform.
Okay.
Right now, half of these are happening because of booking.
Okay.
Half of these are happening independent of booking.
What do you mean by independent?
Oh, so people are just saying that, look, I have a place.
Ah, okay.
I
But they
have an
meet
apartment.
someone over the platform and then say, okay, I have a place
I
outside.
have a place.
Okay.
I'm also doing, or I'm doing an activity that is venue independent. I'm running.
Okay.
I'm cycling.
Okay.
I'm going for a hike. I'm playing at my apartment complex. I have membership.
So that data set doesn't come to your platform if they go to their personal apartment complex and all?
They too tell us where they are playing.
Okay, but the transaction in terms of meeting someone happens, or the engagement with meeting a new person happens on your platform, and they kind of go outside.
They track their activity on Playo.
Oh, okay.
Right? So the booking transaction need not necessarily happen on Playo.
Right.
But the activity, which is essentially what is our core, right? And to that extent, we are driving about, each activity on Playo today sees about almost three people participating in each activity.
Okay.
So that's the sort of, value of the community that we've been building. And therefore, we sort of driving, about 800, 900,000 playing hours every month. So 300,000 activities generating, about close to 900,000 playing hours every month.
Between the two use cases, that is looking out for a place to play and looking out for people to play, which one amongst these two do you think, if solved, can unlock a much larger opportunities for people to stay healthy via sports?
I think both are equally important. I don't think you need to choose or prioritize one over another. I think both are equally big problems. Maybe the community is actually a bigger problem, right? Because unlocking for that truly then allows you, as I was explaining, to not just view this space as an aggregation or a venue access space, right? It allows you to, as I was explaining, to look beyond and say that can you bring people together for gully cricket, for street football, for community basketball rings, centers, right? If people can play at Lal Bagh, at Cubbon Park, play ultimate frisbee there, as long as that community creation, that activity tracking is happening on Playo, I think that is a far bigger opportunity and service to the space.
Sure.
Than just places. That said, places are an equally important part of what we do.
Yeah. So between these two, I think the latter one, it kind of opens up opportunity to play any sport until I can meet someone either at my skill or agnostic to the skill to say I want to play frisbee or I want to go for a jog, right? The former, which allows you to have those centers. Are you agnostic to all sports, or are you specific to any particular sports centers?
We're agnostic to all sports. So on Playo, we offer about 42 sports.
Okay.
We try to club them into sort of groups at times. Otherwise, they just become a big laundry list.
Yeah.
And we see users picking up about 2.5 sports per user, which is really interesting.
So that means each user exploring 2.5 different average sports. Okay, that's interesting. And do you think that 42 is a subset of the other segment where people are just looking out for peer community members to go out and play, or that opens up more sporting activities?
It does. I mean, see, use cases across those 42 could be different, right? I mean, if I'm saying that we're enabling a running or a cycling activity, and I'm saying uske liye venue book karna, of course, I mean, that's not
Possible. Yeah.
possible,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Might be in some
Yeah.
world, but
Yeah.
not.
Unless you block the road in Kaban Park and say, I
Correct,
blocked it
correct,
for you.
correct.
Yeah.
So we don't get into like
Yeah.
getting traffic police
Yeah. Yeah.
permissions and all
Yeah.
that.
Or you could also always say that, okay, meet me at this signal at Koramangala 4th block, and we'll start the run from there.
So that is it, right? So you don't
Yeah.
need to like block the road,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Sure, somebody can, but
Yeah.
we don't. So yes, I mean, it depends. Again, the use case depends on the sport as well, right? Right. If you're playing cricket on a public, you have access to public grounds as well today, right? And when we look at play spaces, I mean, why do we only have to look at private play spaces? What about public spaces available?
Yeah.
I think a beautiful example I'd seen on my LinkedIn feed, a couple of weeks back, Mumbai, below the flyovers, they've basically made play spaces which are
Wow.
free to access. The municipal corporation, I believe, they've just put like sort of nets and rings and drawn lines and put some lights. So under flyover space is being used for as play spaces.
Nice.
So I think, yeah, I mean, play spaces can be open, can be restricted, right? And it again depends on the sport that you're playing, right? And therefore, our engagement with the user would be different based on not just his need, but also what sport he's opting for.
Yeah. Out of these 42 cluster of sports, are there any standout 2 or 3 which kind of is what prominently gets booked in terms of sporting activities?
Oh, as I mentioned, so badminton,
Okay.
football, and cricket. And when I say football, I mean turf football,
Okay.
five-a-side.
Okay.
And when I say cricket, I mean box cricket.
Box cricket. Okay.
And then, I mean, these are 3 sort of the leaders. And then there's, interestingly, another 7-8 sports activities, which are equally popular. Could be swimming, table tennis, bunch of others.
Yeah. And the first 3 is the top 3
Volleyball,
amongst all
basketball.
the cities, or the top 3 changes in different cities?
Top 3 across all cities.
Okay.
Because, I mean, between the 3, there might be competition.
Okay.
But yeah, by and large, we've seen it emerge as the top 3. But again, I understand in Europe, for example, the biggest sport is paddle today.
Oh, wow. Oh, I didn't know that.
Huge.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. So for the end consumer, they come out to the app to book a center or to seek out, search like-minded folks whom they can go and play in. An interesting use case, maybe, if you want to plug in, if you want to date someone, that's a great opportunity. I didn't know that as a use case, but this seems to be working for people. What's your business model? How do you make money?
Yeah, we need to make more of it.
Of course, for you to continue doing this.
Yeah. How do we plan to make money?
Sure.
Is a better question. Right?
Sure.
Yeah. So I mean, from a business model, really, the definition, Dilip, is that if we are central to the sports activity happening, right? If we can enable the play, which is essentially the core, then how do we get a wallet share with respect to the spend on the sports activity? That's how really we define our business model. Now, whether that spend is with respect to, you need a venue to play at, therefore, can we, make money out of enabling venue access, right? Or you need equipment to play with. So can we, make money out of enabling equipment, gear purchase?
Yeah.
Or you need a coach to get better trainers. So can we make money out of enabling discovery and access to trainers? So it's really like, if we've got Dilip as a user. So how do we sort of gain a bigger share of Dilip's wallet share with respect to him playing football?
Yeah. So for the laymanish term, what it means that every time I do a transaction on Playo to book a coat or get some gears for rentals, there's a cut which the platform takes out, right? For this to work, there is the supply and demand game. So the demand is coming from consumers like me. The supply would be the centers where you're diverting this consumer traffic, or people who are putting their
Services and products.
online, right?
Correct.
So as a business, uh, I mean, hard to say which is important, because for you to enable both are important, right? But the supplier, I believe, is equally that important, because if you don't have that vast supply, the demand is kind of lost to it, right? So as a business, when you operate, what are the optics for you?
Yeah, I mean, you're right. See, from a money picking perspective, the both supply and demand are important, right? But from a product perspective, honestly, I mean, we talked about what is a bigger problem, right? People or places, right? And we said, okay, we can enable community creation independent of place, right? So from a product and a community perspective, honestly, it's really the demand that is more important. And also, once the demand comes, right, then you can plug in products and services, right? Once you create that community. So I think that's at least how we see it. I mean, we obviously making revenues is important for us as an organization, as a startup, right? This is, after all, a business venture.
Of course.
It's not a college project,
Yeah.
right? So yes, I mean, we've sort of balanced supply with demand. There's so many more things we'd love to do on community at times instead of what we do on the supply side. But that's life, yeah. I mean, prioritizing
Yeah.
is important, not just in the context of where we want to be, but also what we need to
Yeah. Yeah.
to do to get to that, right? In terms of resource management.
Yeah, in one sense, I also look at is that you are also enabling income opportunities for the supplier, in the sense, because you're driving demand to them, right? That could be untapped, opportunities what they had, or you're kind of creating new opportunities on top of it. Have you seen any shift in the trend where there are new demand manufacturers coming up because players, and what I mean by that is, let's say, demand for you are center owners, right, where you're driving this consumer traffic so that they can play a badminton, soccer, swimming, whatever, right? Have you seen a shift where now there are new owners coming up to say that, hey, look, sports is making big, I can make money by having a new center, maybe it makes sense to do it now and then go out and put my center up as a demand on Play or any other app. So is there a mind shift change in those demand manufacturers to say that this can be a new opportunity because sports is picking up and I can also make money out of it?
Oh, for sure. Right. I
So
initially misunderstood your question, which is also a separate question in itself.
But what I mean is, for example, the Uberization of drivers. Like suddenly drivers realize that they can make more money out of it.
So, I mean, let me again put this in context. Dilip, when we started in Bangalore 2015, I think there were about 15-20 sports centers.
Okay. Across all category?
Across all categories.
Okay.
I mean, literally, you could count them on both your hands. Today...
And these 15-20 were specific to one or two sports, or they were like retail sports centers across multiple?
Badminton and football.
Football, okay.
Right, football, a few football turfs, a few badminton center. When I'm talking about these, whatever, a dozen odd, these were essentially the private venues which were accessible, right? I'm not talking about the gymkhanas, right? Apartment complex communities, which were largely accessible only to the privileged, right? So that was the sports scene. And therefore you had to be a member of, or not you had to be a member, your father had to be a member of
legacy-based memberships,
Correct, right? So if you weren't born with a silver spoon, good luck to you, right? Today, fast forward, 7 odd years, and bear in mind this is 2 years of COVID, which completely killed us.
Yes, I wanted to have a different conversation, but let's add in that.
No, I mean, I think it's, without making a big deal about it, it impacted our space horribly, but it also sort of brought to fore a renewed zest, not just for health, but also for social, fabric. So yes, fast forward today. I mean, there's about 500 more than 500 centers in Bangalore.
That's massive jump.
There's more than a million people playing sports, adults playing recreational sport. In Bangalore alone, we've seen this same trend in cities we've launched in over the last few years. So, it's, this the space is being created, is exploding as we speak, right? You talked about demand creation, new centers coming up. Yes, absolutely. We see people reaching out to us, who are sitting on an idle plot today,
Okay.
right? And saying, okay, how can I monetize this? And I know that Playo exists, and therefore, demand generation will not be a problem. We've had actually, interestingly, there's few years back, 720 some year old something working in an IT company, not late 20s, like mid 20s. They all pulled in, a few lakhs each and created a partnership and set up a sports venue,
Yeah.
having four, badminton courts next to
I heard this
Manyata
is very
Tech.
common amongst IT folks, because
It's
the
a
capex is
nice.
not much. Yeah, you can set. Yeah.
I mean, it becomes a nice passive,
Yes.
infrastructure
Yeah.
income, right?
Yeah.
Not akin to your, not
Yeah.
very different to your telecom towers, so to speak,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
That chal raha hai, right? I mean, it's basically space exploitation at the end of the day.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, no, the reason why I was keen to have your perspective on this because I started seeing these parallels between when Uber happened and not you cannot kind of typecast people, but it's not really driver people, but generally students and even people who 9 to 6 job who want to have extra bucks would get a car or someone else would own a the commercial license and they will start riding the car so that they can earn more money, right? So the new type of supply started coming. Likewise, I saw in Zomato, people just it's no more about real estate. You could just open up a place with a good name and you should know how to cook well, and demand will throw in because people are going to Zomato searching for new places to try. So that also opened up a new opportunity landscape for people who just want to create extra buzz. I mean, funny. I mean, there's a I don't even know whether it's a cloud kitchen or a restaurant, but there's an option for me in the place where I live where the place says raat ko khayenge, right? And it only opens at 9 o'clock
Nine.
and it's available till like midnight. So I mean, interesting. That means it's only for
Not
people who
very
who
healthy.
are coming. Yeah, I mean, I can't call it whether it's healthy, but only people
Yeah.
available because they are
Yeah.
going to cook at that time and for people who want to eat at that time, right? So there, these new opportunities starts getting unlocked because a parallel trend is kind of getting more deep. And here we are talking about sports.
Yeah, so I think, yeah, and I think that's the sort of realization, right, from the business aspect of venues as well. That, I mean, sports participation is becoming mainstream.
Yeah.
And there's an opportunity to unlock, create value there. The economics of the business makes sense. It leads to, a good passive revenue stream, profitable with very healthy payback periods.
Yeah.
So why not? And, demand generation and community creation and awareness is happening any which ways.
Right.
Whether organically, whether community or people like Playo driving it.
Yeah.
So it's just, I think, it's just becoming increasingly mainstream. And so one part is, of course, like as you touched upon, right? This venue space exploding, right? Across cities, we're seeing this happen. When we went into COVID, Dilip, we were live in about 7 cities, metros, and some, right? Today we're available in about 55 cities across India. Besides, what our business in Middle East is,
Yeah.
in UAE and Qatar. And these are small towns. These are, I mean, I've traveled a lot across India, right? These are towns sometimes even I haven't heard the name of. small places, right? I grew up in Dehradun. There's a lot of centers in Dehradun on Playo today. I got married in Patna. There's a few centers in Patna on Playo today.
Nice.
I'm not just talking about Vijayawada and Vizag, but Tirupati and Guntur and Anandpur, Hubli, Dharwad,
Yeah.
Shimoga. I mean, there's a place for, like, even in the smallest of town, there's a space for, if nothing else, at least 20-30 sports venues. Yeah. So I think that's the change we are seeing, right?
Yeah.
On the sports venue, the demand side. You said the second is the affinity categories, right? Ab community ban gaya, users hain, right? And they, of course, a segment that focuses on fitness, health, well-being. Right now, you're playing sports, so today we're seeing a lot of physio centers. Injury management is a real problem. Injury prevention, injury management, stringing services. Things like that, right?
I think physiotherapy. Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah. So these are ancillary, in some sense, very connected pieces. Because if you play sport, there are chances that you would get injured, or you may want, so quite an obvious extension for your audience to come out and see.
Correct.
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't. Yeah, I mean, you're right. I would probably say they're more affiliate than ancillary, right? Because if you don't have a racket, you can't
Yeah,
play.
yeah. Correct. Yeah.
Right. So I think, I mean, like I said, I mean, sports being, a group activity, equipment, people, place dependent. It's not a straight-jacketed approach. I mean, there's a complexity to solving for this, and nobody solved for it, to be honest. So we've made tons of hazard mistakes in our
Sure.
own journey.
Sure. Yeah.
We still don't know what is right. We don't know what is wrong.
Yeah. Now, the geographic reach, you said around 55 cities. You also briefly touched upon international. Can you kind of cover up? I mean, what international locations you are, and
We are
how are you
live
scaling more?
Sure. So we live in UAE, across the 6 Emirates there, and we live in Doha in Qatar.
Okay.
So those are places Doha, in fact, happened during pandemic. Interestingly.
And what made you choose Middle East first? Was it organic or was it
It
strategic?
was basically opportunities coming in and us responding.
Okay.
I think the ambition was to be global from day one. It's just that we are working in a new space with resource constraints. So it obviously could have happened sooner, could have happened later. I mean, it's always up for debate. But yes, I mean, I think interestingly, Middle East, we've been approached from a bunch of countries today, right? I think we're careful about who we partner with. I think
So these are not demand, these are supply which is coming to you, say that, hey, we want to be listed in a new location for
this
you.
is interestingly both supply and demand.
Okay.
Right. So users of Playo moving
Oh,
to
different locations.
and saying, okay, I miss a Playo here. Can I evangelize?
Yeah.
Right. Actually, I have this sports venue nearby. Is it okay if I reach out to him? Because jageh to hai, but I don't have people to play with.
Okay.
Right. Or sports venues reaching out saying that I've heard, and you solve for this need, and can we engage, right? Or people who, like us, want to build something in that space, like, okay, Playo is solved for this, can we be part of the journey and represent Playo there, right? So I think those are the opportunities. We today sitting on inbounds from about, I'm not joking, at least about 40 odd countries.
Wow.
Right. It's only a question of how much can we digest, or we don't want to sort of bite more than we can chew.
Yeah.
So UAE happened earlier on in our journey, to be honest, and it's interesting that it happened because it's sort of like a nice confluence of east meets west, and it's a great learning ground.
Yeah, and I think also that region of Middle East also has a lot of Indian origin. So
correct,
like
and
you
it
said,
also has a lot of Gauras.
Yeah,
So right,
yeah.
so you essentially have a reference, and you also have newer challenges to solve for. And it's sort of like a developed market which has very strong Asian fraternity as well. So
yeah. So when you think about scale, you spoke about, I mean, sure, from one city you scale to almost 55, and I mean you're counting more, and now you're counting countries, right? So you might have a playbook by now where cultural nuances is one factor, because there could be some sports which might not be very obvious, but some new sport might be obvious. But the theme of the product, like you say, is community building, enablement of demand to supply kind of stays along, right? So when you get into these scaling frameworks, what is more primary to you? It is the generate demand first, or is it let's build a basic supply first, or do you carry both together? Because this again is like a typical chicken and egg thing. I mean it's very common for every
and
marketplace.
because it's chicken and egg, I
Yeah.
think both have to sort of go
Go
slightly,
slightly together. But
hand in
for in
hand.
this category alone, the reason I'm kind of putting this out to you is that sport itself is not a new category. Like you're not creating asking someone to this is how you should play sport. Sport is there, right? So knowing that theme, how do you go out and say, look, what one do I pick up?
No. I slightly disagree with that, Dilip. I mean, sports has always been there, and you're not telling somebody to play, because honestly, almost all the users on Playo today have started playing again because of Playo.
Okay.
Right? And I don't think that's a statement out of any arrogance. We do speak to our users a lot. It's not like they were playing before and they've shifted to Playo, right? It's sort of that reconnect with sports has happened courtesy Playo, right? So it's not sort of like a market share, right? And therefore, I say, sort of go back to saying what, that the chicken and egg both become equally important. Our GTM varies, to be honest, right? Yes, I mean, most places it is supply led, right? And it is supply led because, again, making money for us is also important while doing this, right? I mean, if we had a boatload of venture capital backing, maybe we'd do things differently, right? Where we'd focus on community first. So I think that's an equally beautiful way to solve for it, right? And this is also something we've started doing now, right? That, rather than going supply first, we basically start hosting activities on Playo, right? Where we essentially, find a turf and we just take responsibility for getting 10 people together, and everybody pays for themselves for their participation. And we've seen that model working as well, right? So that's sort of the community first approach to, a GTM built on community first. And then there's a GTM based on, get a venue, start exposure as a booking app. And then as you build scale, booking leads into sales, leads into community, right?
Yeah.
So both. I mean, our preference or sort of our established playbook has been this one, right? But yeah, I mean, as we're sort of
changing,
learning, we'd love to do more. Okay, so let me answer it another way for you, right? Data driven, right? About 100 of the 100 new users that come on to Playo, right? About 82% are activated through a booking.
Okay.
And
what do you mean by activity through booking?
They come to Playo, they book
Okay.
first, and then they start doing other things.
Other things. Okay.
Right? About 18% today are doing first a community activity.
Oh, that's interesting. I never thought that should be a use case for a new user, because they're coming to the Playo to seek out the community first. That's interesting. Okay.
Correct. So we've, we launched a product called Game Time about 6 months back, still in very early nascent stages, in locations across Bangalore. And we're seeing that drive, dormant users, inactive users, like people who haven't figured it out, right? Saying that, "Arey, this is so simple. Matlab ground hai, equipment hai, organization, everything is taken care of. I just need to show up and pay for myself."
Yeah. So there quite a lot of stuff you're doing. I'm curious. What's the team size now? And you're the founder, right? No core members will be there. You have a co-founding team.
I've been very lucky to have a co-founding
nice.
team. No, this is not something I could have.
How many co-founders?
With 3 of us.
3 of us. And what's the size of the team now overall?
We're about 37 people strong.
Okay. This includes your core functions, tech, product, marketing, and the ops people.
Correct.
Right. And you're based out of Bangalore headquarters.
Correct.
Right. So when you're in international ops, do you have a person out there, or everything is managed out here?
We have a person.
Okay.
So I mean, again, I don't really differentiate between international and cities. I mean, for me, a Dubai is the same as a Hyderabad, as a Pune.
Right.
So we have a person in each of the regions
Okay.
that we cater to. So 60 city doesn't mean 60
Okay.
people. We have, about 11, 12 people based out of 7 cities covering these 60.
And these are people on the ground, mostly managing the supply side of it, or also doing activation demand side?
Doing more of the former, but also the
Okay.
latter,
Okay.
right? Because I mean, it's also learning for them, right? It's a small team, I think, and I think we'll always be this way, right? In terms of team, I mean, we're very efficient at what we do, right? I think we've really worked very hard to solve for efficiency, knowing that we are foundationally strong. Scale is a matter of time, but we don't want to sort of screw up on that front, because then you can't, when you're at scale, if you're trying to sort of solve for basic processes and all, I don't think that sort of works. So yes, I mean, and therefore, the team that manages, this at the city level, while a large part of their role is really account management and supply side management, they are essentially also looking at marketing and activation in some small ways. So they get to experience more, in terms of, mini CEOs of their regions, right? It's not just about, GTV and transactions, but how do I look at user activations? How can I do some marketing campaigns? And, so they are not just the feet on the street, but also the ears on the ground. Yeah.
So since you're sitting, I think the primary asset for you in some sense, if I would also say, of course, is data, but data which is kind of driven by the community. So community is a very valuable asset for you, right? So any community monetization opportunities you have explored or want to explore, looking at the numbers what you have, because that's a community I would assume brands might want to tap in, because very native audience to them, unlike, let's say, going to a typical media, TV ads or anything, because very power users, as they call it, right? So something which you have done, is this a distribution channel for you in terms of having brands reach out?
Absolutely. We worked with large brands. We work with Puma today.
Okay.
We've done some work with Mashreq and Noor in the UAE. We've worked with IFCO Tokyo Insurance.
What are these guys coming and doing with you? What do they want
as you
from the
said, I mean,
community?
essentially they want to reach out to the community.
Okay.
Right, whether it is promotional, whether it is embedded products and services.
They want some visibility of their product and services to the audience.
And maybe also transaction, like we've embedded fitness cover today within the app, sort of looking at injury management should you unfortunately get injured. Right, so that's an embedded product. We're sort of doing D2C enablement for Puma today on the app. Right, so that's sort of one part of indirect community monetization that I think is a huge opportunity which we're looking at. And then there's the direct community monetization, right? How do you sort of segment your users and build out features which essentially a part of, percentage of some users are willing to pay for. Right, and that's something which today honestly is our core focus.
Nice.
Indirect community monetization to chalta rahega. I think that's sort of that's a no-brainer, right? But really, what is exciting to solve for is direct community monetization. I mean, different user uses, as I said, different use cases of Playo, right? So can you add to some of those use cases and say, okay, the base is available for a regular user, but depending on what segment of power user you are and what needs you have, whether it is organizational, whether it is discovery, whether it is credibility or a referral, how can you sort of pay to unlock some of those features.
The B2C channel seems very obvious, like consumer comes and books, right? Is there a B2B play, like a corporate play, where you onboard corporates and they leverage the platform in some way?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Very important for two reasons. One, maybe more than two actually. One is really, you know, I, it's sort of like cluster adoption for us, right? And it's like, each one tell one, that sort of, flywheel effect. So,
So that's like an umbrella for you. Like you reach out to the corporate and the employee base of the corporate becomes
correct.
the end
So,
consumer.
I think let me put the other way around. Like, some Playo user will reach out to us, not as a user, but as a champion for his organization, saying that, I've benefited from sports. Can now we use sports? Of course, after we do some education, through our platform.
But is there a different use case? I would imagine, because at the end of the day, the booking of the
Oh yeah, there is a
venue.
different. No, there is a different use case,
Oh,
because
okay.
as a team outing, right? You then also have other requirements.
Okay.
Right,
Yeah,
it's not
yeah.
just about the space, but it's
Yeah.
also about scheduling. Your what is your tournament format,
Okay.
F&B.
Okay. And it
right?
could be not just
Umpire.
one event, it could be a series of
Correct,
events.
correct. It also then extends itself to, maybe voucher, right?
okay.
How, a lot of today in name of, wellness and rewards, companies give vouchers.
Yeah, yeah,
A lot of them don't get used, right? So how can you, also sort of look at Playo vouchers?
Makes sense.
For people. So I think those are some of the, what it also helps tremendously is on the supply side, right? Because the retail segment is using these venues early morning, evenings, late nights, and weekends, right? So by and large, during the weekday day, they have a downtime problem. Right now, getting in corporates beautifully solves for that.
Nice.
Right, so it allows us to add value beyond just the usual peak time usage. So that I think is great value add for you, for venues, and then of course for companies it becomes a great team bonding exercise.
Yeah.
If you want to do team bonding, you do beer, pizza, and you're done.
Yeah.
Right, this is a far more engaging way of doing team building. For us, it becomes when because you've got sort of cluster adoption, and you're also helping your supply side.
Nice. Yeah, interesting. Let's talk a bit more numbers. You said 40 odd, 37 people in the team, 40 inbound, opportunities from 40 different countries. That sounds very exciting. What's the competitive landscape? I'm sure, is it very competitive? There are people who are doing art, and I'm guessing you guys might be like one of the top 3 players, maybe your top, which you will tell me. But what's the competitive landscape like in India?
It's an emerging space, right? And it's a tough space, Dilip. I think because it's not a market grab opportunity; it's a market creation in progress. So there have been a lot of attempts, as we've, and unfortunately there's been a high failure rate as well. It's tough to persevere in this space. But yeah, it's nice. We're not the only ones who are crazy enough to do this.
Yeah, which is a good thing.
Yeah, there are some good companies also attempting, hopefully bringing something different to this space, things we haven't thought about, right? Whether it is, looking at this from an event organizer, maybe productizing events, right? Maybe looking at the last, mile experience, right? Or maybe looking at it from, performance enhancement or variables in play integration, video analytics, right? How do we make the activity more engaging, right? I think different companies doing different things, right? Decathlon, for example, right? With the Sports for All, the Decathlon Play app that they launched recently. CureFit, phenomenal work that they've done in making fitness fun,
Yeah.
right? Through group classes, and then also now looking at sports. Of course, globally there's Strava, that is, the champion of social fitness, if I was
Of
to
course,
put it that
yeah.
way. Right? There is a company very similar to us out of Spain called Playtomic, which is again similar vintage than ours. They do some phenomenal stuff. They're across 37 countries now.
Okay.
Uh,
Then India as well?
They're not in India.
Okay,
No, we do overlap with them in the Middle East, not in India.
Okay. Okay.
So their forte is paddle,
Okay.
which is sort of very been a fast emerging sport for the last few years. So those are some of the names that come to mind immediately, right? It's different people solving for, I wouldn't say sports, but physical activity, like real world physical activity. Whether it's sports, whether it's endurance sports, whether it's racket sports, whether it's team sports.
The mortality rate you said was high. What could be your reason? What could be the reason you think? Was it? I mean, common things which comes to my why a mortality rate is high in startups is A, it's timing of the opportunity in the market. B, approach. The approach you take to solve that, right? So what do you think in this space led to that mortality?
I think it's a combination of factors. I don't think there's ever one, right? I think one is the general expectation for most, and I'm not talking about from our space alone, right? But I think for most startup founders is कि funding jaldi mil jayega, right? And if that is hard, then I think that's a lot of motivation down the drain, right? So of course, I mean, in our space, the TAM is not well understood, and rightfully so. I mean, when I started, the TAM was effectively zero.
He's coming from a banker whose job was 9 to 6 to kind of crunch TAMs.
Correct. Yeah. I mean, I think it's where maybe the between logic and insanity, the two sides, right? I mean, for me, it's always been what the TAM can be as opposed to what it is. As I told you about Bangalore itself and similar, things happening in Bombay, Hyderabad, Pune today, right? Dubai, Doha, right? There were no people playing in all of these cities 6-7 years back. There was hardly any sports venues in all of these cities. So there was no TAM then. Right now, we are saying that we are addressing the adult, segment. Then fundamentally, whoever can play becomes the TAM, unless you don't want to play at all or you are incapable of playing. Right. So that's the TAM, right? For me. But then obviously, I mean, most investors are not funding TAM creation. That requires patient capital, right? It requires you to, balance revenue, business metrics with, things like DAO, MAO, and other vanity metrics. So it's a tough task, and I think that, combined with, so therefore, not thinking through the execution properly, thinking you'll probably have easy access to capital. I think the mortality rates are no different. Reasons for the mortality are no different than other spaces. But yeah, I think that's essentially what they say sort of separates the wheat from the chaff.
Yeah, no, you've been, I mean, you have stood out. You have weathered the different times, colors, and shades. 8 years of journey. You raised capital already. How much of capital you guys have raised?
We've largely been bootstrapped, so we've raised very small amounts of angel capital.
Okay.
As and when we've needed it. We've been very lucky to have, angel investors believe in what we're doing, and I think we've sort of gone back to them, bettering our metrics, saying that this is we becoming profitable. Not we will become profitable, but we've become profitable. And now can we look at growth capital, not millions of growth capital, but lakhs of growth capital to grow that a little bit more. Right. So that's how we sort of played this.
But you're also now open to raising capital, right?
As a startup, we're always. I mean, that's to my dharma, right? I have to raise capital.
You have to raise capital, and you have to.
But I think that the difference is that we raise capital. I mean, at least the way we built it, we profitable. We were profitable before COVID. We are profitable again today. We have been profitable for the last 5 months now. So raising capital for us is what can we do more? Right. And I think there's a lot of frustration because we see a lot of opportunities that we can tap into. Right. But for that we need extra resources. And I think that is essentially what we are always raising capital for.
So for the people, let's say the investors who are listening and watching, why is that they should come and reach out to Playo? What is that you have to tell them that you're the guy? They should come and either take your meetings or reach out to you.
No. I'm not the guy and all that. I'm just a guy.
Yeah.
Look, I think if I think there's yeah, again, positive biases
No, of
maybe. They
course. I mean,
live,
because you built it up, so you have the reason to say
yeah,
that.
I mean, it could be, blindsiding as well. But look, I think it's a special opportunity here to really change the way, societies has consumed or rather not consumed fitness, right? I think we've figured a lot of things out in that, right? I think our retention cohorts, our unit economics all speak for it. Our user love, most importantly, right? We rated about for. I mean, we don't have money for marketing and uh, for buying reviews and buying downloads. We don't, right? We rated about 4.7 by users. We're driving organic growth today completely. About 30% or about 40% of our user acquisition is referral without any gratification to it, without any reward to it. It's about 60% is search. So clearly indicates
Oh, so there's no incentive mechanism built in for a user to bring in another user into the platform.
there's a very small sort of karma element that we have, which is essentially the more active you are. So there's no sort of cashback or that sort of an incentive. Uh, so there's a very small component of that which is also sort of capped at how you use it. It's sort of like a proxy for. So largely, the referral is built in and not is built in by the product design itself because it's a group activity. So if we can succeed in getting you, then can I use the product features to bring in your group or get you bring in your group?
Okay.
I think that's what we sort of see, and that's why I talked about the, close to 3 participation per activity. Real world participation probably around 7, 8. Right? Obviously, we can't get there, but the closer we get to that 7, 8, that's the holy grail we need to crack, right? And therefore, sort of coming back to it, I think there's a lot of things we've understood, over the last 8 years, solved for today, and I think, yeah, I mean, I think there cannot be a better way to solve for fitness if you're looking at lifestyle diseases increasing. People are getting richer, people are getting busier, but people are getting unhealthier.
Yeah.
Physical activity has actually decreased
Yeah.
by about 6 percentage points in developed markets over the last 6, 7 years. I think, we've seen COVID, expose our vulnerabilities, right? I think that's sort of the health part of it, right? Then there's the mental health part of it, right? Social anxiety, depression increasing. The first part of call for depression is exercise, not Alprax or Cipral, God, I forget the medicine name. Right, and then there's the entire isolation, the social health part, right? I mean, increasingly work from home, social media, Netflix, everything delivered at home. You don't need to step out, you don't need to meet people. I mean, you're almost fast forwarding into, I think there was this Bruce Willis movie called Surrogates, right? Everything's provided to you at home. I mean, what is that doing? I mean, for you as an individual, right? You're forgetting how to interact with people. I don't think Facebook friend equates to real world friends.
Yeah.
Try calling them over.
Hard. Yeah, I mean, that reminds me, I have to reset my Facebook password. It's been it's been ages I have logged in back, but no, I mean, look, I've been I would say a believer in sports being an anchor. Like in the beginning, I said, not just for cognitive development, but also emotional, social, and of course, physical becomes a very organic, byproduct to it, right? So
Becomes a way of life,
yes,
no?
absolutely.
I mean, look back at your own school life, Dilip. You had, a PT class and you had a sports class. Which one did you truly enjoy?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, of course, now when I look back, my reasons to play sport is very different though what it was earlier. But
Maybe
the grade of enjoyment is perhaps a little few notch up than what it was earlier, because at that time
that's
maybe
because you've matured as a
yes,
person.
at that time you didn't know why you were doing it, and now you have 10 more reasons to do that. No, so no, this has been super fun. So just before we wrap up. Uh, this might sound a bit hard, but I'm sure as a founder you're wired in that way. If Playo had to fail, what do you think would be the reason today?
Hmm. I think no different from any startup. I think it's, as long as the founding team can, continue being motivated, I think there's no reason. I read something very nice. Most startups fail not because of lack of capital, because the founders give up.
Yeah, yeah,
So yeah, I think as long as we can motivate ourselves or
yeah,
keep ourselves motivated, it's not easy. I
yeah,
mean, there are good days,
yeah,
there are bad days, and there's bloody horrible days.
yeah,
But I think as long as we believe in what we're doing, and we truly see this impacting lives, uh, and we can find a way to fuel ourselves, whether through revenues or capital, and sort of keep the ship running.
yeah. No,
We
look,
can't do all of that, then of course.
yeah, no, I mean, and as rightly said, it's all about that motivation, and motivation comes from multiple angles. One of the things what we want to do as a group, Rainmatter Health, is to create that ecosystem, and this is that platform essentially to bring innovators and builders like you and others who are creating the solutions to in different formats, either to giving healthier choices, make people move in a fun way, get them that deeper organic sleep rather than shoving pills, and there has to be more such creators. So one important aspect I often find is that it is also important for more future creators or builders who are sitting probably at the fringe to kind of get motivated to say that we should come back, because it's not that we have enough solutions. The problem is massive for different kinds of people, and there's still massive opportunities for people to come innovate and bring in their solutions for um, uh, all the entrepreneurs, wannabe entrepreneurs who want to build in this category, that is making people healthy by moving, or essentially in the fitness wellness space. What is that you want to I won't ask you to advise or opinion, but what is that you want to share as a 2 cent, that what could be their starting point, or what could be the reason why they should think this is a category why they should build upon?
Well, I think first and foremost, the time is now, right? I think the pandemic has a lot of bad impacts, right, on our business. But I think also there's sort of been a realization shift, courtesy that, right, in terms of wellness, health,
Yeah.
not as I said,
Accelerated,
not
yeah.
not just physical, but mental and social health. Mostly because you've been cooped up at home for so long, right?
Yeah.
So you can keep doing your dumbbells and all that, but going out and meeting people is also
Yeah.
your social health, right? So I think the time is now, right? There's a lot of problems to be solved for, right? Because as we touched upon, right, health has multiple facets to
Yeah.
it, right? Sleep, eating, or rather not eating, right?
Yeah, that's a very good point. Not eating, which is very underrated though. Yeah,
Oh, yeah,
people don't touch upon
I
that.
think
Yeah,
honestly that has a bigger impact on
yeah,
physical health than exercise.
yeah,
I wish we had this compendium of books back in school. You know, Jason Fung,
yeah.
the Why We Sleep,
Yeah, yeah,
Breath,
yeah. Matthew Walker.
right?
Yeah, yeah. One of my all time so-called complaint to myself and my upbringing has been that this is a topic which we were not taught in our school, that is nutrition, right? Or the basic aspects of human anatomy. I mean, we were taught biology,
No,
which is very different from how our physiology, how our psychology evolves. What should we eat? How should we eat? When should we eat?
it's not just schools,
Yeah.
Dilip. Honestly, I mean, I have a lot of doctors in the family, but it's not a serious topic even in med school.
Yeah.
They're taught to cure.
Yeah.
I mean, preventive nutrition is not something most doctors. I started doing fasting.
Intermittent fasting. Yeah.
Extended fasting actually. Right. So I did watch Prabhudas. This video. He's a leading cardiologist in Florida, and then I read Jason Fung's book, a nephrologist. There's somebody told me to read this 10% Human about gut. Just picked it up, haven't read it yet. But I mean, I think there's a lot of things that we don't understand about nutrition still.
No, I'm excited. I mean, thank you for touching upon that. Like I said, someone who is building it, when it comes from that lens, it's much more natural than someone who is looking at it from a TAM, SAM, and what a
नहीं,
McKinsey has
सब
to
तो
say.
है. I mean, वो सब तो है.
What a
that
McKinsey has to say, what a KPMG has to say, which is hot. But this is a perennial problem, which is there not just in India, but world over. The more we are kind of entrenched into the new landscapes of digital world and all of that, I think we are forgetting the movement part of it. I think it's very important for us to get back to movement in a fun way. No, I'm happy we got this opportunity to kind of touch upon what you're building, what you want to build in the future. Very excited for Playo. So my best wishes to the entire Playo team and to you. I've been a happy user of the product and urge everyone to do that. Before we leave, so if people want to reach out to you, of course, as a customer, you can go and download it on Playo, but I'll let you talk. If someone has to reach out to you personally or they want to use the product, their service, where would you want to direct them?
Okay, so if you want to use the product, please, our app is available on iOS and Android. You can download it from the app stores. You can also go to playo.co and there's a download link there. If you want to reach out to me, my email ID is there on our website, Gaurav@playo.co. It doesn't get simpler than that. So shoot me a mail. I do try and respond to all mails. I might be a little late at times, but you'll definitely hear back.
And are you active on any social platforms, LinkedIn, Twitter?
The only platform I'm active on is LinkedIn, because I think that sort of still has some level of sanity left in it.
Yeah, so no, this is great, Gaurav. I'm really excited for the future of Playo and the entire team behind it. Good luck to you, and thank you for joining me for this conversation. And I really hope the next time when we meet, you've unlocked many more users to make them move, make them healthy, and we have more exciting stories to cover from you.
Great. Thank you again for having me. It's been lovely talking to you. Yeah,
pleasure.
Thanks
That was Gaurav, founder of Playo. I would urge you to go download the app, reach out to Gaurav on his email or LinkedIn if you want to share any feedback or if you have any new opportunities to explore with Playo. Thank you for listening or watching. If you have any feedback for me, please reach out to me. I'm also there on LinkedIn, Twitter, or you can drop a comment on YouTube or wherever you're watching this. Please subscribe, share with other founders who are building, or tell more people about these interesting product and solutions these builders are building. That's the idea of what we do at Rainmatter Health. And if you're a founder who wants any sort of help, support, reach out to Rainmatter. We are at reimagining.com. Let us know what you're building. We'll be happy to talk to you. Thank you, and I'll see you next time with another interesting founder and interesting startup. Good luck.